My name is Arin Lindauer, and you're listening to A Life Without Struggle. I'm a wife, a mother of 2 wonderful children, a 2-time best-selling author, and a highly driven and successful entrepreneur. In my 17-plus year career as a mindset and health expert, I know what holds women back from a life you only dream about. Whether you're a CEO, a businesswoman, or executive, I started this podcast because I have been where you are, and I know you want and deserve more out of your life. I believe women are limitless. We just get lost along the way. The process to get you there is the topic and purpose of this podcast. When you understand what you want, you can truly step into a life without struggle. Welcome, and I'm so thankful you're here. Welcome back to another episode of Life Without Struggle. My name is Arin Lindauer, and today we're going to talk into how our results are earned. So today I'm going to take you through a topic where results are not something that just magically show up. They aren't just guaranteed. Results, and I'm speaking into this from a health, wellness, weight loss, desired outcome with your body, with your health, but it's also always going to segue into, honestly, any goal that you have for yourself, whether it be financial, relationship, career, business. Everything is earned, and everything is earned based on the actions that you do today, tomorrow, the next day. See, so many times we want the cheat code or we want the easy way. Of course, right? Like I think there's nobody on this planet that wouldn't like to do things in an easier fashion. I will never forget one of my classes in my exercise science degree was called biomechanics. And it was one of the hardest classes that I took in my undergrad. And it was basically the physics of the body. And I remember just studying all the time, trying to understand. And I remember the test used to give me so much fear because this test was a multiple choice test where you could actually score negatively on it. And I think just knowing that really, I let that get to me and I let that get in my head. But I remember just spending the countless hours in study groups, and it was just little by little by little learning the concepts, understanding the physics of the body, and understanding what everything actually meant to then pretty quickly understanding the concepts and putting it all together and then applying it in my everyday life. For example, when we resistance train. And so it was wild because I expected to just ace that class class should just be easy. I mean, hell, it's just the physics of the body, right? It's not that big of a deal, but it is. And it took a lot of effort. And I remember that one class in particular had me in such fits that, I would just cry and I'm never going to get this. And this is so hard. And, but in the end, it took inching the ball down the field, inch by inch by inch, by studying and working at something day after day after day. That's where I want to go with this conversation here today, because so many times we desire an end result. For example, with weight loss, we want to see who we want to see in the mirror at any cost, right? And the problem is there's a lot of physiology that goes into this. There's also so many years, sometimes decades of abusing our body. And then all of a sudden, because we decided we wanted to get healthy, we expect that it's just going to snap our fingers and all of a sudden everything's going to go exactly the way we want to go. And we're negating all the things that go into it. The fact that we're addicted to foods, the fact that we've been trashing our body and eating in a way that is very mental versus actual nutritional. And so we don't even understand the process and the journey that we have to go to get our desired result. And so we hope and pray. We hope and pray that, one day we're just going to magically wake up and we're going to have lost all this weight and, life is just going to be fine. But what we don't understand is the time, the effort, the consistency I mean, we are so short fused, so short, just like minded. Like we want something so quick without any of the work involved. And I'm here to tell you that the mastery truly is in the work, the getting up day after day after day, and understanding that every single day it's either a win or a loss. It's honestly that simple. And if you stack more wins, you see the desired outcome. It starts happening right in front of your eyes. To one person, they look at you and say, "Oh my gosh, how did you do that?" But in your eyes, you're like, "Holy crap, this just took me like a year, 2 years of my life to get in this spot." So many times I have clients or just women in general say, "God, how do you lift like that? How do you move 165 pounds or 175 pounds on a deadlift for that many reps?" And I'm like, well, I've been lifting for quite some time. Like this didn't just come naturally for me. And honestly, I remember coming out of college and I barely knew how to really lift. I had always just did very basic movements. I hadn't ever lifted in high school. I mean, we did a little bit, but not anything earth shattering. I remember, honestly, a lot of it was very hands-on and personally getting into the gym. And honestly, Tony had a ton of influence on how I actually lift here today. But so many times we think that just happened. And this is just year after year after year doing it personally. And so many of us think, boom, it's just going to happen overnight. So I wanted to speak into this because we forget how long it takes to master things. When you think about a baby, and when a baby is born, they can't do anything. They have to be cared for and, nurtured and guided. And, somewhere between they're 9 months to maybe a year and a half, they start walking, but it's like they have to learn little by little. They first have to be the baby that needed nurtured, that needed coddling, to then, all of a sudden they start crawling and getting curious and getting mobile, to then we start giving them implements or our hands and guiding them to take step by step, building their confidence day after day after day, to finally one day their zombie arms straight out in front of them and they're walking, right? And they're so proud. Yet they still fall down, but they get back up and they fall down and they get back up till finally one day they are just simply walking. And it's just a normal process for them. That is what weight loss is. Weight loss takes time. You sometimes have to be coddled and held and helped through this process to then all of a sudden it is mastery. But that process is going to take the amount of time that it's going to take. For some people, that is literally 4 months. For some people, it is 6 months. For a lot of people, it is a year, 2 years, 3 years. The reason it takes this kind of time is because you have to experience life. You have to experience different situations. What ends up happening is we give in to our old ways because it's a habit. It's what we're used to. And we are creatures that don't like resistance. We tend to run away from resistance. We tend to just keep doing the same thing over again, even if we know it is not serving or getting us our result. And so the likely question is why? Well, it's wiring. It's the neuroplasticity. But the really cool thing is with enough desire, with enough belief, you start to change. It's one of the coolest feelings and the coolest things that I get to witness as a coach when a woman starts to really understand. It's when a woman throws her hands up in the air and says, "Screw it, I can't do this." That's probably one of my most frustrating spaces to sit in because you have to let her stumble. You have to let her work through it. You have to help guide her and hope that she sees, hey, this is worth it. Hey, I am going to have to change things more than maybe I wanted to, but for the result, I'm going to tell you, it is everything. The problem that I see that's just the hardest part of this journey is when we just simply give up. It's one of the most defeating feelings, not only to watch her go through, but also as a coach, because I'm like, damn, I didn't get her. I didn't get her to flip that switch. And it's actually not as hard as she thinks it's going to be, but for whatever reason, she's coming up against the resistance. And I'm here to tell you that the resistance is actually a good thing. It's when you learn the most, and when the days are the darkest, when the days are the hardest, that is where you truly will break through, when you decide to do things just a little bit differently. Just, instead of always reaching for that cookie because we've always done that, we say, you know what? I really don't need that. That's not going to change anything. And if anything, that's not going to get me where I want to go. And dang, I really do want to rock that 2-piece. Dang, I really do want to feel confident in my own skin. I want all my family and coworkers and friends to turn their head and go, dang girl, what are you doing? I want to have the optimal health that I can have. I want to be there for my kids. I want to age well. I want to be able to be there for aging parents. These are all the things that I hear day after day after day, but we forget them. We forget them in the moment because we're not there yet. And I cannot tell you how good it feels until you've experienced it, until you've seen your body at an optimal level and you have good energy. You go to sleep every night feeling so good about your day. You knew you checked all your boxes. You know you kicked ass. And you know what? If you didn't, you're going to get up tomorrow and you're going to try again. Because that's who you are. You are the type of person that starts something and you finish it. Even if it means you have to learn tough lessons along the way. What I see happen, and I want to help give some insight to this, is we give up, we lose hope, but what's really happening is we have a broken or pieced together strategy. The strategy is actually extremely simple, but it's not simple. The simple parts of it is the moving our body, doing our resistance training, adjusting our eating patterns, increasing our protein, understanding how many calories we burn, understanding how many calories we take in, and how does my body actually respond to certain types of foods, eating out, sodium, sugar, all the things. And the problem is there's a lot of variables there, right? So that's the hard thing of this is, we want to incrementally change this versus just completely cold turkeying somebody on this, because typically speaking, you can only hold out so long. Instead, I prefer an approach where we adjust this, see how we respond, adjust this, see how we respond. The problem is so many women think, okay, this is too simple, or, I need a different strategy, or we haven't done things consistently enough, and we actually lie to ourselves. That's one thing, even myself. And again, I can only share these things because I have personally experienced them myself. We are very, very good at telling ourselves that we're doing all the things, yet nothing is working. I will never forget when I had 26 more pounds on my body and how much of a wreck I felt. Just constantly was like my hormones were jacked, and they were not in a good place, but there wasn't anything that was going to change them necessarily, or that I would want to start taking, because that in itself could have its own outcomes. But in reality, what I absolutely learned was I couldn't keep kicking my own ass in the gym. I couldn't keep running and running and running, and the impact, especially when you have additional weight. I remember those runs. They were awful. It would take me about a mile just to get my stride because it just hurt. And I think honestly, my body just went numb. And I remember just my hair falling out. I remember my nails being super brittle, and they never, I have rock hard nails. I remember my hair falling out, and those were all signs that the stress, my thyroid, a bunch of things weren't in sync. But what I really understood was once I started actually sleeping again, and this is one of the biggest ones that women just absolutely neglect, is we don't just put ourselves to bed. You cannot just stay up all night. You cannot get one more email in. You cannot do that and show up the next day and expect to see results. Okay. So you have to work at that. That's something that I can't just magically snap my fingers and say, hey girl, you got to go to bed. You know, you're not my child. But on the flip side, it is one of those important things. And just myself personally, I've absolutely fallen in love with going to bed earlier. And you know, when you go to bed earlier, you can expect yourself to get up earlier, be more productive. You're not hitting the slump in the afternoon. And it's really something to consider. Most of your growth hormone is released between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So this is where your body's recovering, taking care of itself. This is where you're putting yourself in an optimal state for fat loss. So it's something to consider, especially from a hormonal standpoint. And I have so many women say to me, you know, how do I fix my hormones? How do I know if it's my hormones? And I'm like, you need to sleep. You absolutely need to sleep. There's multiple endocrinologists that will say if women would just sleep more, they would fix part of their hormones. Can't say it's always going to be everything because everybody's so individual, but I'm here to tell you it's absolutely a huge part of this. The other thing that we have to fall in love with in this journey, in the journey of weight loss, is you have to fall in love with doing the boring work. None of this is earth-shattering. Typically, you know, sometimes like there's nuances that people are like, oh, I had no idea like how important that was. And so that's always helpful. But on the flip side, we have to really fall in love with the boring work. We've got to get those steps in. We absolutely have to adjust our nutrition, and we have to fall in love with planning and prepping and understanding where our next meals are coming from. We also have to get really real with ourselves and say, am I over consuming? And here's the deal. For anyone who is plugging things into MyFitnessPal, you have to be diligent about what you select, and then you also have to weigh and measure everything. Especially even something as simple as Greek yogurt. I see this all the time. I'll see, you know, a tub of Greek yogurt, or someone said, oh, I had Greek yogurt. Well, okay, cool. How much? What was your serving? Was it 3/4 of a cup? That's what the side of the thing said. But very rarely would you pull out just a 3/4 of a cup. I mean, I call that out all the time. I'm like, that's not 3/4 of a cup, which is okay. Sometimes we actually need a little bit more, and that's a good thing. But understanding in the full picture of the day, and if you're dining out, I'm just here to tell you that meal is well over 600 calories. Every single time, it is well over. Even oh my gosh, this drives me batty, but even ordering our kids' meals, those meals are always pushing 1,000 calories typically. So just keep that in mind. So we have to fall in love with doing the boring stuff. We have to resistance train. This is something that all women have to resistance train, and it doesn't have to be sexy. It doesn't have to be, you know, the latest, greatest, doing this, doing that. And you have to fall in love with just doing the boring stuff. If you're not sure if what you're doing is working, this is where I highly recommend having a coach and having someone actually put these workouts together. They need to be progressive in nature, and it's something that you have to do minimum 2 times a week for actual muscle adaptation. And I'm here to tell you that for a lot of us, 3 times a week produces the results that we actually want to see. So we have to put together the right strategy. And so many times we want to take, you know, the quick way out, or we want to, you know, take a shot or this or that. And listen, nothing against the GLP-1s. I think we can absolutely use them, but you have to resistance train, and you have to make sure that you're working with a doctor that is willing to, you know, understand the dosing and not overdose you and giving you a bunch of side effects. I mean, that is a huge part of understanding how to use these peptides to your advantage. So it's important for us to understand that your strategy may not be working, and we may need to be shifting things, changing things up. But we also have to remember that this is a boring process. It isn't like I can't wait to go do this workout. I can't wait to go do that walk. It's I just do it because this is who I am now. When it comes to understanding how you get your results, you have to show up every single day. The day that I'm recording this podcast is the day after a very, very big election. And what I've seen over and over and over again is people just not able to function or deciding not to work today. And I'm here to tell you that I'm doubling down today. I got my workout in, got my steps in, I'm getting all of my work done, and I'm actually getting on a plane and going to a workshop to better my business, to better myself. I'm taking time away from my family and doubling down on my business so that we can continue to produce and help people and take our family in a whole different direction. See, I don't, no matter what the outcome of the election, I was going to do that no matter what. So it's important for you to understand how you have to show up every single day, because your results are a byproduct of the things that you did yesterday, today, tomorrow, the next day, not when you felt like it, not when all the stars aligned, not when everything felt right in the universe. It's out of times of struggle, out of times of trials and tribulations that we truly grow the most. So my question for you here today is, are you just coasting through life? Are you hoping and praying for results? Or are you earning your results every single day by doing the right strategy, having the right plan, and executing that plan even when you don't feel like it? If the answer is no, this is where you need to reach out. And I highly recommend hitting me up on any social medias. You can email me at arin@tfwellness.com. And let's have a conversation. It's one thing to listen to podcasts and get excited and get motivated for a hot second, but we all know, just like bathing, we got to do this every single day. So let's earn these results. Let's earn them together, and let's get after everything that you desire. There's no shortcuts. We can't hope and pray for our results. But on the flip side, when we show up every day in a powerful way, those results will be earned when the time comes together. Got this. Go get them.